Hey, what's going on, nerds? Welcome back. This is episode 2 of No Demos. I'm your host, Ed, and this week we're going to be looking at the Orbit fuzz tone, probably from the 60s, probably from the United States, probably a lot of things. And interestingly, I actually don't really know much of anything about this, which is kind of why I'm making the video. I'm hoping I can throw it out there and the internet collective mind can come together and we can piece together exactly what this thing is, where it came from, who made it maybe, and anything else we can get from it. So I'm going to tell you my history with it. I'm going to tell you what I've been able to find out in the meantime, and we can go from there. So about 6 years ago, I found this on eBay. It was sitting there. It was being neglected. It was being sold off like cheap rags. And I wanted to come in and save it, rescue it, and bring it home to be with its other fuzzy, friendly family. Because it looked cool. It looked old. I'd never seen it or heard of it before. And that's typically all I look for when it comes to an old pedal. And I got it. I jumped on it, and it's mine. So, when I did get it, I opened it up, and I looked inside. So let's do that right now. And the first thing I noticed, little telltale sign here, 2 AA batteries, 1, 2, 3, count them, germanium transistors. And when you see that, you typically think, oh, that looks like a Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone. And in this case, you would be 100% correct. It even comes with the infamous on-off volume pot with that very satisfying click. So, this thing sounds awesome. Sounds exactly like you want an FZ1 to sound. It's rippy, it's gnarly, it's gatey, it's spitty. It's just all the great things that you want your 60s fuzz to be. And that's this. So, I noticed that the transistors are germanium. They are RCA 2N408s. They're PMP. You'll probably correct me in the comments, but at least from what I've read, the 2N408s are a good substitute for the 2N270s, which are typically found in an actual Maestro FC1. So, makes sense that they're there. Makes sense what they were going for. They must have had one in hand, or at least a schematic to go off of and make this little guy here. The other thing I noticed is the Olsen caps. And when I first got this, I stupidly thought, oh my god, it says Japan. Maybe this is made in Japan, even though nothing else in here says Japan. But then I remembered, because I knew this, Olsen Electronics is a company out of Akron, Ohio. And they're known in the 60s and 70s for these catalogs. You could basically order bulk electronics. You could order music gear. You could order electronic parts. You could order all kinds of stuff from them. And you could definitely order capacitors just like this. And just like it says Japan on it, pretty much everything they had came from Japan. They actually had their own fuzz pedal, the Olsen Fuzz whatever, Master or something like that. And that is the same as the LRE fuzz sound. Again, a Japanese made pedal. It's an OEM situation where the pedal was made somewhere else. They slapped logos on it, and then it was sold typically out of the US with the name of the electronics store. So that's what this is. So I'm still holding to being in the made in the US. Another interesting thing is there seems to be this glaze on all of the components and the board itself. So not necessarily a goop. They weren't trying to hide anything, but it looks like they're trying to protect the circuit from any dust, debris, from grounding out from this tiny little enclosure and all the wires in there. I haven't really seen that too much before, but that's what they did, and that's kind of cool. If you look on the outside, a couple of interesting things out here. See if I can put this back together. If we look at the outside of the enclosure, you see it is in this cool textured black paint, which I love. You see that in quite a few 60s pedals. You even see that on the base of the old Electro Harmonix pedals. You see it on triangle muffs, things like that. But what's I think is kind of cool is that the silkscreen, the Orbit Fuzz portion, I mean, really all of it, because they did it on top of this textured paint, it made the white bleed into the actual little details in there, which is kind of cool when you look at the fuzz itself. It makes it extra fuzzy. So that's sweet. Another thing you notice, like I said, it's an on-off pot, which you see in a lot of fuzz tone copies, and density, which, funny enough, this, even though it says gain, is volume. Density is actually gain. This is where you're going to get your extra boost of fuzz from, is your density. I haven't really seen the word density used on any vintage fuzzes before, so that's a new one to me. Pretty sweet. These knobs, I feel like I've seen them before, or at least some similar ones. I think maybe even the elk fuzzes, maybe. If it's not exactly that, they're pretty similar. But, you know, something like this could have been around forever. Who knows? Who knows where they came from? So, yeah. So, this is what we do know about it. FZ1 copy. Pretty much US parts. And it sounds awesome. So, I could have left it there, but I decided to reach out to the person I bought it from and ask them if they have any extra information. Are they the original owner? If not, what do they know about it? So the person that sold it told me that he was selling it for a friend. Friend was older, didn't really know how to use eBay, had this box of junk in his basement, old gear, random electronics and stuff. This was in there, and he was selling it for him. So I asked him those questions. He reached out to his friend. His friend said that he got this at a place called Inglewood Music, which is in LA, on Market Street, I believe is where it was. And he believes he got it sometime in the late 60s. He remembered the owner of the shop's name was Al Spalding. So I looked these things up, and it's a thing. Inglewood Music did exist. It's exactly where he said it was. Al Spalding did run Inglewood Music, in addition to another store that had been around much longer, called Westchester Music. Funny enough, both stores, in addition to having music gear, also sold records. And they were more known for that than they were for selling gear. Al Spalding actually is routinely quoted in Billboard magazine. The earliest one I found was actually 1961, and he's quoted pretty much throughout, basically when they wanted to get a pulse on what's selling, what's not selling, the state of rock and roll at the time. Al would give his estimation and his guesstimation and his observance of what are the kids buying nowadays. So that's kind of cool. So that's what I have with this. Again, I don't know how accurate that is. I have had first account stories from people before that weren't 100% true. Just like anybody, they tend to mix up details. They tend to mix up different facts, times, dates, all those things. So we don't know if that is where this is from. If it is where it's from, was this something? Was it like a little, small business that was getting going in LA? Is it somebody that knew the shop? Was this built for Inglewood Music and Westchester Music? Did they make 10 of these? Did they make 100 of them? I have no idea. So these are all the unanswered questions. Maybe you do know. Maybe you have the key. Maybe you worked at Inglewood or Westchester. Maybe you're like, hey, I invented the Orbit Fuzz. That's me. I'm Mr. Orbit. And if that's the case, sick. You can reach out to me. You can let me know. My email should be available through my little profile here on YouTube. But you can also hit me up on Instagram. I'll leave the link inside the description. I don't really have too much else on it, though. Like I said, everything else is a mystery. I don't know exactly when the date is. Oh, something I did forget to mention is that the pots on the inside, one of them dates in 1963. That's too early. I'm going to even though that would have given them a year, and I did find an account from somebody online saying that they had purchased 2 Maestro FZ1s, originals, around 62, 63 when they came out from Westchester Music, which is also kind of an interesting piece to add to this story, meaning that if that is true, they did know what they were, and they were able to, take inspiration for the Orbit Fuzz. But 63 is too early. 66, though, is what's on the other pot. and that is more believable. So my guess right now is sometime between 66, 68. Nothing really else in here gives me an indication of date. So again, if you know anything else about it, if you can help me determine what this thing is, where it came from, who made it, when it came out, I greatly appreciate it. And if not, hey, maybe you're just into seeing a cool little obscurity part of Fuzz history. All right. This has been No Demos, episode 2. Ed signing off. See you on the next one. Peace.